Welcome back. It's a quiet night, and you found your way again to this still corner of time, where the noise of the present softens, and the weight of the past settles gently over your shoulders like a velvet cloak. Let your eyes grow heavier now, and let the dim light of this little story draw you inward. There's no need to move, no need to think ahead. The world we're drifting into tonight is distant, perfumed, and heavy with gold, a place where chandeliers shimmer without flicker, where every footstep is muffled by silk, and where meals are not eaten, they're endured. Tonight, you are not a servant, nor a beggar in the alley beyond the palace gate. No, you are something much more delicate, a guest at the highest table. A French aristocrat, sometime in the late 17th or early 18th century. Your skin has been powdered to match porcelain, your cheeks are flushed with rouge, and your shoes, though impossibly tight, glitter with silver thread. You wear scent instead of soap, lace instead of comfort, performance instead of appetite. Your meals are more ceremony than sustenance. You don't eat because you're hungry. You eat because you must be seen doing it. Because your presence, your posture, and your poise at the table are all part of the theater. The others are watching. The servants are watching. And even your food, it seems, is watching. Eyes glazed over in a final shimmer of butter. Head still attached. Feathers artfully reaffixed. And yet, as beautiful as it all appears, beneath the sheen and sugar lies something stranger and darker. Because while everything around you glows, the crystal, the cream, the candied fruit, something inside your stomach tightens with each bite. And you start to wonder, how much of this is truly a pleasure, and how much of it is slowly killing you. So settle back now. Let the story unfold slowly. Let the layers of lace and wrought wrap gently around your senses. Let your breath slow, your limbs loosen. And when you're ready, we'll begin, one course at a time. Because tonight, you'll be dining in silk, but not surviving in comfort. Chapter 1. You wake to a day of hunger and perfume. You begin to stir before the sun, not because your body wills it, your limbs are tired and your eyelids weighted like velvet drapes, but because you hear movement in the outer chamber. It is not loud. Nothing in this place is loud, but it is precise, controlled. The whisper of linen being smoothed, the clink of a basin being filled, the faintest scratch of coals being coaxed back to life. And you know, before your eyes have even opened, that someone has come in to begin preparing you. You do not rise, you do not stretch. You lie still, because stillness is expected. Rising without assistance would be common, unseemly. Your body, though technically your own, does not belong to you at this hour. It belongs to the routine, to the performance. And so you wait and you listen. Outside your bed's curtains, a valet clears his throat softly, then calls your name. Not loudly, not in question, but in a tone of quiet confirmation. A tone that means, yes, I am here, and yes, I am ready to begin the act of dressing you. You answer with silence. That is enough. And the curtain is drawn back. The air is still cool, touched faintly by last night's fire. The golden canopy above you flickers with the light of early candles. You feel the shift of the mattress as hands reach beneath the embroidered coverlet to unlace the silk ribbons at your ankles. Another pair of hands unbuttons the inner chemise. Another lifts the first layer of your linen. None of it is done quickly. The process is not meant to be efficient. It is meant to be watched, considered, layered. You are being sculpted back into yourself, piece by piece. Your head is lifted, your hair combed. A scented oil is gently rubbed into your temples, not for relaxation, but to mask the faint scent of stale powder and yesterday's sweat. You inhale the perfume without protest, though it stings your eyes. You do not complain. Complaining would ruin the morning. A fresh camise is drawn over your arms. Fine silk stockings are rolled up your calves. Stays are wrapped around your torso and drawn tight, not tightly enough to crush you, but just enough to remind you that your breath is no longer your own. Then come the layers: underskirt, overskirt, embroidered waistcoat, shoulder cape, shoes with buckles the size of oyster shells. At each stage someone bows. At each stage you are asked nothing, and still you have not eaten. Your mouth is dry. Your tongue feels like paper. But breakfast is not for now. It is for after the transformation. And even then, it may not truly be yours. A tray appears, held by a young page whose cheeks are red from carrying it quickly through drafty halls. The silver dome is lifted to reveal a single brioche roll, golden and glazed, alongside a fine porcelain cup of thick, steaming chocolate. Not bitter like the peasants' drink, but sweetened with cinnamon and laced with ambergris. You are meant to sip it delicately. You are meant to eat only a corner of the bread. You do not feel full afterward. You are not meant to. This breakfast is a ritual. A suggestion, a bit of warmth to begin the theater of the day. Outside your chamber, the world has already begun to whisper and glide. Footmen pass in silence. Maids avoid your gaze. The floor has been swept, and yet it is never quite clean. Ash still falls from the fireplaces. Bits of flour drift from the kitchens. Crushed petals stain the hems of gowns too long to lift while walking. The palace is beautiful, but it is always shedding, like something alive. You walk through it slowly, not because you wish to admire it, but because haste is unbecoming. You pass a mirror and pause, not to check your reflection, but to ensure that it matches what others expect to see. The blush has been evenly applied. The white powder masks your skin's uneven color. Your lips are stained faintly red. You look presentable, pale, perfectly fragile. But inside your stomach is beginning to ache. You hear the bell for first movement. A soft chime meant to gather those of your station to the salon. Not for conversation, but for visibility. This too is part of the ritual. You must be seen. You must murmur polite nothings. You must comment on someone's fan, someone's lace, someone's lapdog who appears freshly groomed. You must smile and nod and never once speak of hunger. Because hunger in this place is vulgar. If you are truly suffering, you say you are faint. If you are ravenous, you say you are simply overwhelmed by the heat of the fire. You let a valet bring you a glass of white wine, the good kind, chilled with snow from the cellar. You sip, you smile. Your stomach lurches at the sourness. The hours pass not with bells, but with changes in fabric and music. You hear the quartet tuning in the next room. That means the first course will be served soon. You think of the bread again, the one you left half-eaten on the tray. You should have eaten it. But now it is gone, taken away, and there is nothing between you and the long table ahead but politeness and the clenching knot in your belly. You walk toward the dining chamber in a line of others, all powdered, all painted, all equally rehearsed in the art of appearing delighted. You take your place at the table. You do not sit first. You do not unfold your napkin. You wait, and when it begins, it does not begin with food. It begins with performance. Courses are announced. Dishes are paraded. Feathers, sauces, silver domes, cloches of crystal. The scent is heavy, sweet and sour at once. Somewhere under all the gilding is meat, overcooked, underrested, barely edible. But you will not say that. You say it is fragrant. You say it reminds you of Venice. The first dish arrives on a gold-rimmed plate. It is pheasant, or perhaps pigeon, drowned in a sauce so dark it reflects your face. The chef has used cloves and vinegar to hide the fact that it has aged too long. You take a bite, and the flesh is grainy. The skin sticks to your teeth. You do not flinch. You sip more wine. You smile at your neighbor. Your stomach churns quietly beneath the stays. You breathe through your nose to keep the nausea at bay. And still, you smile. Because this is only the first dish, and there are 17 more to come. Chapter 2. The breakfast that isn't yours. You do not awaken with the comfort of freedom or hunger followed by choice. In this life, in this season of powdered cheeks and brocade sleeves, breakfast is not something you prepare, nor is it something you request. It is something designed around you, or perhaps more accurately, around the version of you that others must see. There is a kind of irony to it. This concept of breakfast in a palace, surrounded by gilded mirrors and tapestries of birds that never sang in your country's trees. Because while you live among every symbol of abundance, the act of eating is laced with silence, ceremony, and restraint so severe it leaves the stomach unsettled. Not empty, necessarily, but unsure of what fullness would even mean. The chambermaid enters first, soft-footed and scentless, to check the light. The curtain is pulled back no more than a hand's width, just enough to determine the mood of the morning, the color of the clouds, the softness of the wind. If the air is thick with damp, she chooses cinnamon. If it's bright and dry, she lays out something floral. This is not for you. This is for the tray. Your tray is never large. It is porcelain or silver, sometimes with curved handles shaped like curling vines. It is not placed directly on your lap. That would be far too intimate, too common, but instead brought to a narrow table near your reading chair, positioned just so the morning light brushes across the edge of your drink without glaring into your eyes. The meal it carries is never loud. No crusts that crack, no eggs that steam, no broth that stings the air. Only soft things, delicate textures, controlled temperatures. This morning it's a warm chocolate. Thick, not like water, but like velvet. It clings to the sides of the porcelain and smells faintly of vanilla and ambergris. A single curl of orange peel floats atop, more for show than for flavor. Alongside it sits a brioche, golden on the outside, soft within, with no butter, no jam, nothing but its own silence and warmth. It is smaller than your palm. But of course, this breakfast is not truly for eating. It is there to prepare you, not for labor, not for travel, not even for ceremony, but for being seen. It is the meal of transition, of becoming. You are not alone during it. A footman stands beside the wall, one hand folded behind his back. His presence is not conversational. He is not there for your pleasure. He is a witness, a visual assurance that the household functions correctly. He will watch, without ever looking directly, as you lift the porcelain cup and take that first, cautious sip. It is scalding at first. It always is. You are not allowed to complain. You hold it a second longer than comfortable. You swallow. You nod. You say it is lovely. It doesn't matter if you believe it. You take one bite of the brioche. No more. It is airy, a touch sweet with the faintest taste of egg and salt. You chew it slowly, not because you savor it, but because chewing too quickly makes your throat tighten. A trick you learned last season when the corset was drawn too high and your stomach had nowhere left to go. Your valet enters next. He does not speak, but in his presence, your time with the tray is over. He sees the untouched corners, the half-finished cup, the bite-sized tear in the brioche, and he nods. That is enough. You lifts it gently, careful not to clink the porcelain, and disappears as quietly as he came. Only then do you remember you were hungry. But now, it is too late. The breakfast has served its purpose, not of nourishment, but of refinement. And while your body may complain, the rest of the day will demand that you carry yourself as if you are full, not only of food, but of certainty, ease, perfection. You take your seat in the larger room, now warmed by a nearby brazier. Your gown has been changed, your hair arranged again, and a fresh face cloth has been pressed against your temples to prevent shine. No sweat must form. No pink must rise in the cheeks without cause. Your hands are powdered now, too, even your hands, so that no one sees the veins, the strain, the trembling that still sometimes happens when you've eaten too little and stood too long. You think again of the brioche. You wonder what happened to the rest. And then, in a strange way, you remember who did eat it. The dogs. Of course. Not yours, exactly. They do not sleep in your room or sit at your feet, but they are part of the household. Small, pampered things with glassy eyes and ribbons too bright for their fur. They bark when servants pass. They snap at one another over treats. And every morning, just after your tray is cleared, the remaining portions are broken and fed to them. Small chunks of perfect bread passed from fine fingers to expectant mouths. They never show gratitude. They do not need to. They belong, as you do, to the structure. They are ornaments with teeth. And still, as you watch one curl into a velvet chair not far from your own, you feel it. A strange flicker of jealousy, not because they are better than you, but because they do not have to pretend. They may eat when they wish. They may beg. They may lick the plate, and no one expects them to smile politely through it. You look away. The room smells of lavender now. Someone has sprayed the curtains. A harp is being tuned in the hallway. Your governess walks past, her smile tight with approval, noting your posture, your composure, your silence. You say nothing, because in this world, restraint is your greatest virtue, and hunger, if you still feel it, is simply something you will have to carry. Beneath the powder, beneath the satin, beneath the practiced curve of your lips, because the feast will come, and when it does, it will not feel like relief. Chapter 3. The smell of rot under powder. You have arrived at the dining chamber, the grand salon, where light and shadow play over polished surfaces, where crystal chandeliers hang like frozen flames above tables stretched long and laden with silverware as fine as any blade, and where the very air seems thickened by perfumes so strong they almost conceal the scent beneath. The scent you cannot ignore, no matter how finely it is masked. It is a perfume mixed of jasmine and musk, lavender and rosewater, but underneath it is something darker, something faint and persistent. The sour tang of decay, the sharp bite of meat past its prime, the cloying odor of sauces that have lingered too long on plates before being replaced by the next course. You breathe it in, delicately, like a secret whispered in a crowded room. You tell yourself it is nothing, that it is simply part of the ritual. But your stomach tightens at the awareness. The room hums softly with murmured conversations, clipped French phrases spoken in velvet tones, laughter like the tinkling of glass. The faces around you are painted, powdered, framed by towering wigs and lace collars, but their eyes dart just briefly away from the feast, as if to avoid seeing too clearly the reality on their plates. The servants glide silently between tables, their steps measured and careful, carrying gleaming platters that steam and glisten with offerings that seem almost too elaborate to be food, and yet too questionable to be true nourishment. You sit poised, your back straight, your gloved fingers resting lightly upon the damask tablecloth, your eyes flickering toward the centerpiece. A monstrous creation of gilded peacock feathers and golden trinkets arranged atop a massive roasted bird. It is a spectacle designed to impress, to intimidate, to show power and wealth. But you know better. You know the flesh beneath those feathers is tough and stringy. The flesh of an animal long dead and hastily cooked to hide its age. The first dish arrives, a rich stew thick with spices, the sauce a dark, sticky glaze that clings to your spoon. You lift it slowly, trying not to think about what may lurk beneath the surface. You taste, the flavors are muddled, the texture uneven, the heat from the pepper burning your tongue in sharp bursts. You swallow quickly, forcing yourself to smile, to nod, to murmur approval. The eyes around the table glance toward you briefly, assessing your reaction, noting your compliance. You dare not disappoint. Between courses, you notice how the servants test the food themselves, taking small bites, scrupulously watching for any sign of spoilage or poison. They are the gatekeepers of your safety, yet they are not the guests, and so their standards are pragmatic, not refined. What they deem edible is often far from appetizing, and what they reject is quietly removed from sight, never mentioned. You catch a glimpse of a tray hastily cleared, a platter of fish whose skin glistens suspiciously, the edges curling as if already drying out. You look away. You do not want to see the discarded morsels. You do not want to imagine the hours spent preparing, curing, disguising these foods for the table. You want only to focus on the company, the music softly rising from a corner where a harpsichord plays a melancholy tune, the delicate clink of glasses filled with wine that tastes bitter and old, but which must be drunk regardless. The meal continues, course after course. Each plate is more elaborate than the last. A procession of meats stuffed with fruits, pastries filled with savory creams, sauces thickened with crushed nuts and wine, vegetables simmered in butter that turns rancid long before the dish reaches the table. You eat slowly, carefully, conserving your appetite while maintaining the necessary appearances. You know the truth. Much of this bounty is less feast and more mask. Your hands tremble slightly beneath the table, hidden from view. Your lips press tightly together to prevent any grimace from escaping. You imagine the kitchens behind the heavy doors, where leftovers are reheated again and again, where the cooks work in near silence beneath flickering candlelight, their faces pale and tired as they labor to turn spoiled ingredients into fleeting beauty. The air grows heavier as the meal progresses, thick with a mixture of perfume, sweat, and the faint coppery tang of blood. The laughter grows louder, voices rise, but you sense the exhaustion beneath the revelry. Even the nobles must wear their masks, and the masks slip sometimes in moments of careless indulgence or whispered complaint behind closed doors. You catch sight of a guest. A woman whose pale face is streaked with rouge and whose eyes dart nervously. She delicately lifts a silver fork to her lips, but suddenly pauses, a flicker of doubt crossing her features. You imagine what she must taste, the subtle off flavors hidden beneath thick sauces. You imagine the discomfort that no one dares acknowledge, and yet no one speaks of it. No one acknowledges that the opulence is fragile, that beneath the lacquer and lace there is rot, slow and inexorable, spreading like a shadow beneath the glow. You swallow another bite, you sip more wine, your throat burns, your stomach churns, but you remain seated because this is the performance you have agreed to. The mask is more important than the meal. And tonight, the feast will go on. Chapter 4. The servants taste it first. You sit perfectly still, your fingers resting lightly upon the tablecloth, your breath measured and soft, as the room hums quietly around you. This chamber, bathed in soft golden light and fragrant with the faintest scent of rose water and beeswax, is both sanctuary and prison, a stage set for ritual and silence. Above you, the crystal chandelier scatters fractured glimmers across the faces of those gathered, faces painted pale, powdered, framed by towering wigs that rise like frosted sculptures. Each smile, each tilt of a head, each subtle nod carries meaning. But the most critical part of this gathering, hidden beneath the sheen of elegance, happens in the shadows just beyond your sight. The tasting. The servants begin their silent procession, like shadows sliding between tables, their footsteps so soft they seem to float on air rather than touch the polished floor. They wear the livery of the household, black doublets with white collars crisply starched, their hair tied back and their faces carefully composed to betray nothing. Their movements are choreographed, practiced, deliberate, for this is a dance of life and death, cloaked in the guise of service. The food they carry is no longer simply sustenance. It is a potential threat, a puzzle to be deciphered before it reaches your lips. You watch as a tray is brought to a side table just out of your direct view. A steward, a man of quiet authority, waits there, his face partially obscured in the shadow cast by a heavy velvet curtain. He takes the first bite, a morsel of roasted meat, glistening with glaze, from the delicate silver fork of a passing servant. His eyes narrow slightly, brow furrowed in concentration. The flavor lingers on his tongue, his lips purse. He swallows carefully, then reaches for a small glass of wine, letting the rich liquid wash over the taste before nodding almost imperceptibly. A signal. The servants exchange subtle glances, and another dish is presented. This time, it is a platter of fish, the skin taut and shining as if wet, delicate scales barely disturbed. The steward tastes, hesitates, then sets the plate aside with a slight shake of his head. You feel a shiver pass through your spine. Even here, beneath layers of lace and gold, the threat of decay is real. Your hands twitch in quiet tension beneath the table. You wonder briefly about the kitchens, those hidden chambers of toil where cooks work through candlelit nights, their hands raw from constant labor, faces set in grim determination as they strain to transform aging ingredients into marvels of flavor and disguise. You imagine the pots simmering with mysterious herbs, the clever concoctions of vinegar and spices, masking the slow march of rot. You picture the small fires where discarded scraps are reheated again and again, until the food that finally reaches you is no longer fresh, but a carefully crafted illusion. The air is thick now with a mingled scent, the sweetness of preserved fruits, the sharp tang of fermented wines, the oily richness of roasted game. Yet beneath this carefully composed bouquet lies something you cannot quite place. An undercurrent of something faintly sour, a whisper of the unspeakable that you dare not name aloud. You breathe through your nose, swallowing down the rising discomfort, reminding yourself of the unspoken rules. Eat gracefully, speak softly, and never question. The servants continue their ritual, moving from table to table, the tension in the room palpable despite the soft murmurs and polite laughter. You see the briefest flicker of unease on the face of a maid who carries a silver tureen. She pauses, dipping her spoon tentatively into the thick stew, then glances quickly toward the kitchen door before tasting a small portion herself. Her lips tighten as if bracing against something bitter. Then she places the spoon aside and moves on. You know what she tastes, even if you cannot bring yourself to. Your own meal is now placed before you, the first course served with a flourish. A rich pie, its crust golden and flaky, hides within it a filling of game meat and mushrooms. You lift your fork and take a small bite. The texture rougher than expected, the flavors muted but oddly metallic. You chew slowly, carefully, forcing down the sensation of unease that prickles at the back of your throat. Around you, your fellow diners engage in their own rituals, gentle conversation, the clinking of fine china, the faint rustle of silk dresses. But you remain acutely aware of every detail, every scent, every shadow. You sip from your wine glass, the taste sharp and slightly spoiled, though no one would dare say so aloud. The wine is your companion and your curse, dulling the senses even as it stings the tongue. It is liquid gold, yet it carries with it the memory of distant vineyards, the sweat of laborers, the secrets of barrels long forgotten. You raise the glass again, catching the fading light as it pools like molten amber, and you swallow. The course after course arrives, each one more elaborate than the last. You watch as a gilded peacock, feathers meticulously restored for presentation, is borne into the room. The bird's flesh artfully carved and drenched in sauces thick with cream and wine. You know the truth, that beneath the beauty lies meat that has been handled too long, that has lost freshness and gained the faintest touch of decay, all hidden behind a mask of culinary invention. You take a bite anyway, because refusal would be scandalous, because you have been taught to endure. Your stomach tightens. You swallow. The music swells softly in the background, a harpsichord's gentle notes weaving through the air like a balm. Yet the tension remains, a quiet shadow at the edges of your awareness. You glance around the room, faces painted and powdered, eyes flickering briefly toward plates, then away. A noble woman adjusts her lace collar with trembling fingers. A gentleman dabs at his lips with a scented handkerchief, his smile strained. No one speaks of what they suspect, of what they sense beneath the layers of silk and scent. You wonder briefly, not for the first time, how many of them would survive if the masks were dropped, if the wine was replaced by water, the sauces stripped away, the feast laid bare in its raw, unvarnished reality. You push the thought away. The servants move once more through the room, collecting empty plates and discarded bites with quiet efficiency. Their faces betray no emotion, but you catch the shadow of weariness there. The knowledge that their work is endless, thankless, vital. They are the guardians of the meal, the silent sentinels who protect the guests from harm but cannot shield them from the truth. The candlelight flickers, casting moving shadows across the walls, turning embroidered silks into waves of darkness and light. The air grows heavier with each passing hour, thick with perfume, laughter, and the faint underlying scent of rot. And you remain seated, poised and silent, caught between indulgence and survival, between illusion and reality. The servant's tasting is the unseen barrier, the first and last defense against what might be fatal. It is a reminder that even here, in the gilded halls of power and pleasure, life is fragile, that beneath the sheen of wealth and refinement lies a world that is as vulnerable and uncertain as any other. You breathe deeply, steadying yourself for the courses yet to come, because the meal is far from over, and the night is still young. Chapter 5. The dishes just keep coming. The feast unfolds around you like a slow-moving river, its currents both enticing and exhausting. As each new course arrives, elegantly presented on plates gleaming with gilded rims and delicate patterns, you feel the weight of the evening deepen, not just in your stomach, but in the very air you breathe. The room, once filled with soft laughter and light conversation, now seems to pulse with the relentless rhythm of arrival and consumption, of abundance that overwhelms even as it masks the fragility beneath. The first dish, a roasted pheasant, its skin lacquered in a glaze so rich it catches the candlelight like liquid gold, is quickly followed by a pie filled with spiced meats and fruits, its crust flaky and dusted with sugar. You take each bite with care, savoring the complex mingling of flavors while feeling a gnawing tension twist inside you, a quiet rebellion against the sheer volume and heaviness of what you are asked to consume. Your mouth tastes not just the food, but the history of this place. The centuries of preparation, the countless hands that have folded, kneaded, roasted, and seasoned these dishes, all to create an illusion of perfection. Yet beneath that illusion lies a truth that no amount of sugar or spice can disguise. Much of what is served has already begun to surrender to time's slow decay, preserved only by layers of sauce and the artful addition of aromatic herbs. The dishes arrive without pause, one after another, as if the table itself is a tide that refuses to ebb. Wild game soaked in thick wine reductions, pheasants reconstructed with their feathers artfully replaced to delight the eye even as their flesh toughens with age. Pastries filled with liver and prunes, candied fruits so heavy with sugar they cling to your teeth like traps. And always, the endless flow of rich, heavy sauces that coat every bite, demanding you swallow quickly to mask the gritty textures beneath. You feel the pressure mounting. Not only the physical sensation of fullness beginning to press against your ribs, but the unspoken expectation that you will continue to eat, to smile, to engage in this delicate dance of indulgence and endurance. Your hands move almost of their own accord, lifting fork to mouth, napkin to lips, glass to throat. Every gesture is precise, rehearsed, measured. Around you, the other guests navigate this same challenge. A lady in embroidered silk pauses for a brief moment, her fingers trembling slightly as she reaches for a piece of gilded pastry. A gentleman beside you sighs quietly, the faintest shadow of discomfort crossing his powdered face before he quickly masks it with a polite smile. No one speaks of their growing fatigue, their aching stomachs, or the mounting nausea that some can no longer hide behind the veneer of etiquette. You too feel it, a tightening knot of discomfort that grows with every course, a slow burning in your throat that no sip of wine can soothe. The luxurious surroundings feel suddenly oppressive, the golden walls closing in as your senses reel from the overload of flavors, textures, and aromas that clash and mingle in dizzying succession. You remind yourself to breathe, to slow your pace, to take only small bites, but even this becomes a challenge as the parade of dishes continues unabated. There is no escape from the table until the final course is served, and even then, you know the ritual will carry on behind closed doors, in the retiring chambers where the real secret of the feast is kept. The spectacle is overwhelming. Dishes arriving in ornate silver service, some carried by multiple servants to maintain balance, others presented with theatrical flourishes meant to dazzle and distract. Roasted meats stuffed with layers of fruit and spices, pies topped with elaborate pastry sculptures, bowls filled with creams and custards scented with rare essences from distant lands. Every plate is a masterpiece and a burden, a promise and a trap. You notice how the lighting shifts as the evening deepens. The candles burn lower, their flames flickering and casting long shadows that dance across the faces of the guests, deepening the contrast between light and dark, warmth and chill. The golden glow softens, becoming more intimate, yet the pressure to perform remains unyielding. Your stomach protests in quiet desperation. The tight corset constricts your breathing. The heavy fabrics cling uncomfortably to your skin, and the powdered mask you wear feels suddenly like a barrier between you and the air you so desperately need. Yet you endure. You swallow. You smile. You catch yourself thinking about the servants again, those silent figures who moved so carefully at the start of the meal, who tasted each dish before it reached you. They have watched you eat, measured your reactions, ensured your safety in ways you can scarcely imagine. Their work is invisible, their presence unacknowledged, yet without them, this evening would be far more perilous. As the meal stretches on, you begin to notice the subtle signs of wear on your fellow diners. A hand brushes away a tear from a powdered cheek. A jaw clenches to hide a grimace. Eyes flutter closed briefly, then open again, wide and unfocused. There is a shared understanding, unspoken but palpable, that this feast is as much a trial as it is a celebration. Despite the discomfort, despite the slow creeping nausea, the feast holds a strange allure. It is a world apart, a realm of gold and silk and endless indulgence. It is power made edible, status served on a platter. And you, for this brief shining hour, are a part of it. The final courses approach, desserts piled high with spun sugar, fruits candied and glazed, creams whipped to impossible peaks. Your teeth ache before the first bite touches your tongue, your stomach already revolting against the sheer abundance. Yet you take the morsel, chew slowly, and swallow. The evening draws to a close, the music softening, the candles guttering low. You lean back in your chair, your breath shallow, your body heavy. The feast has left its mark, not in satisfaction, but in fatigue and discomfort, in the lingering taste of sweetness and rot mingled together. You wonder, as you rise to leave the table, how long you could endure this endless cycle of indulgence and endurance. How many more nights you could mask hunger behind lace and powder. How many more courses you could swallow without breaking the spell. And then you step into the cool night air, the scent of the garden faint but fresh against your skin, a brief reprieve from the weight of the feast. For tomorrow, you know, the table will be set again, and you will return. Chapter 6. You're not allowed to leave the table. The moment you sit down at the table, the weight of obligation settles upon you like a velvet shroud. Heavy, constricting, and inescapable. Unlike any meal you have known before, this feast is not simply a matter of appetite or nourishment. It is a test, a performance, a prolonged endurance trial, measured not by the clock, but by the endless procession of dishes and the expectation of your unwavering composure. You cannot leave, not for thirst, not for relief, not even for the overwhelming churn in your stomach that threatens to betray your grace. There is no excuse for absence here, no permission granted to those whose bodies rebel against the demands of formality and excess. To rise before the final course would be scandalous, a silent admission of weakness that could unravel the carefully constructed facade of power and control you are sworn to uphold. The candles flicker low, casting elongated shadows that seem to stretch and curl like ghosts across the faces of your companions. Their smiles, painted and fixed, betray nothing of the fatigue or discomfort that clings to them like a second skin. Eyes glance furtively toward the heavy silk curtains, as if willing the night to come sooner. Yet the feast drags on, slow and deliberate, each course arriving with measured ceremony. You feel the corset tighten, the ribs compressing as though to remind you that your body must remain still and composed, even as it grows heavier with each bite swallowed and each glass drained. The layers of fabric, brocade, velvet, lace, that adorn you seem less like clothing and more like armor, constricting your movements, muffling your breath, and weighing down your limbs with invisible chains. Your hands rest lightly upon the table, but beneath the powder and rings, your fingers tremble ever so slightly. You force them still, not daring to reveal the exhaustion that creeps like a shadow beneath your skin. Your back aches from the insistence on sitting upright, your legs numb from the hour spent unmoving, yet you maintain the practiced poise that has been drilled into you since childhood. The meal continues without respite. There is no pause long enough to offer true rest, no moment when the servants cease their movements or the music softens into silence. Between courses, glasses are refilled without askance, and plates are cleared only to be replaced with new, more elaborate creations. The sheer volume of food is staggering, but it is not the abundance that weighs upon you most. It is the relentlessness, the refusal to grant reprieve, the demand that you endure. You glance to your left and right, observing your fellow diners. Noble women with cheeks flushed not only by rouge but by the strain of the evening. Gentlemen whose eyes flicker with weariness beneath their powdered brows. None speak of discomfort, though you sense it in the stiffening of their necks, the tightening of their jaws, the slight falter in their smiles. Each is trapped in the same unyielding cycle, bound by invisible chains of etiquette and expectation. The wine flows steadily, a river of ruby and gold that dulls the senses even as it burns the throat. You sip cautiously, aware that drunkenness is as much a failure as refusal. The sweet headiness clouds your mind, blurs the edges of discomfort, but it does not erase the growing ache within. Your stomach churns, uneasy and swollen, a bitter reminder of the unnaturalness of this feast. Time becomes fluid, stretching and folding upon itself. You lose track of how many courses have passed, how many more await. The flickering candlelight softens your vision. The low murmurs of conversation blend into a gentle hum, and your limbs grow heavy as though submerged in water. Yet still, you remain at the table, a statue carved from patience and willpower, your face a mask of serene grace. You think of the retiring chambers, those secret alcoves hidden behind silken drapes, where nobles discreetly purge to make room for more indulgence. You wonder who among your companions will slip away when no one watches, who will embrace the fleeting relief of release behind closed doors. But you cannot be among them. Your place is here, visible, present, enduring. You swallow again, the taste bitter in your mouth, despite the sweetness of the wine. Your throat tightens as you force down another bite, a rich, creamy custard that threatens to upset the uneasy balance within. You feel your pulse quicken slightly, a flush creeping up your neck and into your cheeks, but you steady yourself, reminding your body that surrender is not an option. The room seems to close in, the walls adorned with gilded mirrors reflecting not only the opulence but also the quiet desperation etched into the faces around you. You catch a glimpse of your own reflection, pale and composed, eyes slightly glazed yet steadfast. It is a reflection, rehearsed, practiced, the image you must project at all times. Beneath the surface, however, your body screams for relief. Your limbs ache, your head throbs, and the relentless pressure in your abdomen feels as if it might burst. You breathe through the discomfort, slow and steady, as if each measured inhale and exhale can stave off collapse. The candles sputter low, their flames dancing precariously as the evening wears on. Servants move about with silent efficiency, their faces impassive as they prepare the next courses, polish the silverware, and adjust the linens. Their presence is a constant reminder of the machinery behind the splendor, a world of unseen labor and rigid control that sustains the fragile illusion. You lift your glass once more, the liquid warm and slightly sour on your tongue. The others do the same, a chorus of clinking crystal echoing softly through the chamber. You catch the briefest eye contact with a neighboring guest, and in that moment, a flicker of shared endurance passes between you. A silent acknowledgement of the toll this night is exacting. And still, you remain, bound by duty, by decorum, by the unyielding expectations of a world that prizes appearance above all else. Your body trembles beneath the weight of silk and expectation. Your mind drifts toward rest even as the feast demands your full attention. You long for the moment when you can finally rise, slip away into the quiet darkness beyond the heavy drapes, and allow yourself the fleeting mercy of release, in whatever form it may come. Until then, you sit, still, silent, enduring. Because in this world, there is no other choice. Chapter 7. The Hidden Vomiting Room. The grand dining chamber, once alive with the shimmer of candlelight, the soft clinking of crystal glasses, and the murmur of polished conversation, now breathes a heavy stillness, thick with the residue of excess. The guests remain seated, faces flushed and eyes glazed with fatigue, their bodies swollen with the relentless tide of food and wine. Yet despite the seeming abundance and opulence, an unspoken truth lingers in the shadows. A secret chamber concealed behind heavy silk curtains, whispered about only in the quietest corners and darkest moments. This is the realm of the retiring chamber, the hidden refuge where aristocrats seek release from the unbearable weight of their own indulgence. You feel the pressure within you mounting steadily, a swelling ache that no amount of powdered smiles or delicate nibbles can mask. Your breath grows shallow, Your heart pounds against the confines of your bodice as the consequences of the feast become undeniable. You know the ritual, the delicate dance between pleasure and necessity that forces even the most composed nobles to seek solace in this concealed sanctuary. Rising slowly, with every movement rehearsed and measured to avoid drawing attention, you smooth your gown and adjust the folds of silk around your wrists. Each step toward the hidden alcove is taken with quiet resolve, your mind heavy with both anticipation and apprehension. You are acutely aware that leaving the table, even momentarily, requires stealth and discretion. Any misstep could invite gossip, suspicion, or worse, social ruin. The servant who appears to guide you through the labyrinthine corridors is a shadow himself, silent, unobtrusive, yet fully present. His gloved hand rests briefly on your elbow, a subtle reminder that you are both protected and watched. The flickering candlelight dances along the tapestry-lined walls, casting elongated shadows that seem to reach for you as you pass, wrapping you in an eerie embrace. You pause before a heavy velvet curtain, its rich folds swallowing the dim glow from the corridor. Behind it lies the retiring chamber, a room stripped of pretense, devoid of the ornate decoration and lush textiles that define the rest of the palace. Here, the walls are bare, the floor rough-hewn stone. A small basin of water waits on a plain wooden table, and a simple chair sits near the corner, its surface worn smooth by countless weary bodies. Closing the curtain softly behind you, you step inside and let the door click shut with a quiet finality. Alone, you lean against the cool stone wall, the chill seeping through your silk gloves and into your skin. The solitude is a stark contrast to the dazzling spectacle outside, yet it offers a fragile comfort, a momentary reprieve from the ceaseless demands of decorum. The nausea that has been building within you reaches its peak, and you move toward the basin, your fingers trembling as you lift the cool water to your lips. The liquid is a sharp contrast to the rich wines and heavy sauces that have filled your mouth and stomach all evening. You lean over the basin, and the inevitable follows. The act itself is one of release and humiliation, a secret born in the shadows to preserve the illusion of grace. You close your eyes tightly, the sounds muffled by the thick curtain. Your body heaves gently, the tension easing, even as the shame settles deeper. It is a ritual, repeated countless times by those who dine in gilded halls, a silent acknowledgement that the feast, for all its grandeur, is a burden too great to bear without relief. Afterward, you sit quietly in the chair, your breathing slow and measured as you regain your composure. Your cheeks are flushed, your skin clammy beneath the powder. You catch your reflection in a small cracked mirror propped against the wall. A pale, weary face framed by dampened curls, eyes bright but tired. You lift a hand to smooth your powdered cheek, tracing the fine lines that no amount of cosmetic artifice can erase. A soft knock at the door heralds the return of your attendant, who enters with a fresh cloth and a small vial of scented water. They move with practiced efficiency, dabbing your face gently, helping you to adjust your garments with care and discretion. The ritual of renewal is as important as the ritual of release, a final touch to ensure that when you rejoin the world outside, no trace of vulnerability remains. Emerging once more into the gilded corridors, you are again enveloped by the intoxicating scents and shimmering light of the palace. The heavy drapes conceal your secret, the whispered truths locked safely behind their folds. You rejoin the company with a measured smile, your posture restored, your eyes brightened by the quickened pulse of renewed composure. Yet beneath the surface, you carry the memory of the hidden chamber. A place where indulgence meets desperation, where power is balanced precariously on the edge of human frailty. The feast continues, and so must you, enduring the endless cycles of consumption and concealment, of luxury and sacrifice. This is the paradox of aristocratic life, a gilded cage where excess and restraint coexist, where the price of beauty and status is paid in quiet suffering and hidden tears. And tonight, as the final courses are served and the candles burn low, you know that the secret of the retiring chamber will be whispered again in shadows and silences, a truth that no feast dares reveal aloud. Chapter 8. Sugar is rotting your face. You sit back in your chair as the candles burn, their soft flicker casting trembling shadows across the ornate walls, and you watch as the dessert course is unveiled before you like a glittering crown. Towers of spun sugar rise like delicate fortresses, their threads shimmering in the firelight, glistening like fragile webs spun by some mythical creature of sweetness. Bowls brimming with candied fruits, glazed apricots, crystallized citron, jewel-toned cherries, are arranged meticulously around the table, nestled next to gilded plates heaped with creams, custards, and delicate pastries, so light they seem almost ethereal. You reach out, your gloved fingers trembling slightly, to accept a small morsel of almond paste delicately molded into the shape of a rose, its surface dusted with powdered sugar that settles softly onto your skin like a whisper of winter frost. The taste is overwhelming, a flood of sweetness that fills your mouth and lingers long after you swallow, a rich and heady confection that both delights and bewilders your senses. But even as you savor this treasure, a shadow of doubt creeps quietly into your thoughts, like a chill beneath the warmth of the fire. You recall the stories whispered in the servants' quarters, the hushed warnings passed down from one generation to the next. Sugar is a poison masked in sweetness, a luxury that comes at a steep price. Your teeth, so carefully concealed behind the layers of powdered makeup, have begun to betray you. A dull ache pulses beneath your gums, a creeping rot that no amount of polishing or veneer can hide. The guests around you seem unaffected, or at least unwilling to show their suffering. Their laughter rings out like silver bells, light and clear, as they pass plates piled with marzipan figurines and thick, syrup-soaked cakes. Their smiles are radiant, teeth gleaming under the soft glow of chandeliers, but you notice the occasional wince when the fork hits a particularly hard crust, or when a sweet tang lingers too long. No one speaks of the decay, for such talk would be vulgar, a stain upon the delicate tapestry of refinement. You wonder how many of these faces, so carefully maintained, hide the slow erosion beneath. The cracked enamel, the blackened roots, the whispered dread of toothache that might go untreated for fear of showing weakness. You recall the royal dentists, a rare breed, summoned only when the pain becomes unbearable, armed with crude tools that promise no comfort. Their ministrations are brutal, their methods crude, leaving scars that even the finest makeup cannot conceal. Your own mouth tastes bitter now, a bitter edge beneath the cloying sweetness. You sip from your glass, a rare Madeira, its warmth soothing but insufficient to dull the ache, and try to focus on the textures and aromas of the feast, rather than the slow unraveling within. You bite into a delicate tart filled with candied orange peel, its sharp citrus note a fleeting relief. Yet even this is fleeting. The contrast between the outward splendor and the private decay is stark, a cruel paradox at the heart of this indulgent world. Sugar, once a rarity hoarded like treasure from distant colonies, has become a symbol of status and power, a testament to wealth that can buy delicacies unknown to common folk. Yet that same sugar is a slow poison, a luxury that demands sacrifice in the most intimate of places, your own body. You think of the lavish sugar sculptures displayed during festivals, the ornate confections crafted by master patissiers whose skill transforms simple sweetness into art. You imagine the labor of those who harvest the cane in far-off lands, the toils hidden behind the glittering palaces and grand tables, and you recognize the prices paid not only by distant hands but by your own aching teeth and weary jaw. Around you, the evening stretches on. The music has softened to a gentle murmur, the flickering shadows now long and languid across the faces of the diners. A hush falls over the room as a final course is brought forth. An elaborate bombe glacée, its layers of ice cream and fruit bound beneath a delicate shell of spun sugar. The guests applaud quietly, their eyes bright despite the heaviness that weighs upon their bodies. You partake in the final sweetness, the cold cream melting slowly on your tongue, a brief respite from the richness that has dominated the night. Yet as the last bite dissolves, you feel the lingering sting, not just of sugar, but of exhaustion, of excess, of a night that has demanded more than your body can bear. Later, when the candles have burned to their last flicker and the guests have retreated to their chambers, you sit alone before a small mirror, the faint light revealing the cracks beneath your carefully painted facade. Your fingers trace the smooth porcelain of your teeth, a fragile shield against the decay beneath. You touch your lips lightly, tasting the faint bitterness that lingers even now. Sleep beckons, but it comes wrapped in the ache of indulgence. You close your eyes and imagine the quiet spaces beyond the palace. Fields where sugar cane sways in the breeze, hands stained with juice and sweat, distant markets where spices and sweets are bartered like gold, and the hidden corners where secrets of pleasure and pain intertwine. Tomorrow, you know, the feast will begin anew. The layers of sweetness, the rituals of taste, and the hidden toll will return in endless cycle. But for now, you surrender to the darkness, letting the warmth of your bed and the soft whisper of silk lull you into restless dreams flavored with sugar and shadow. Chapter 9. Wine instead of water. You awake the following morning still tasting the lingering sweetness of the night's indulgences upon your tongue, a faint bitterness mingled with the rich, velvety notes of wine that seem to flow endlessly through the hours past. But as the day begins anew, you realize that this is not simply the aftermath of a single evening's feast. It is the ongoing rhythm of life in a world where wine, rather than water, is the constant companion of your meals, your moments of rest, and even your thirst. Water, you understand deeply, is a precarious thing in this place, a source of both sustenance and danger. The rivers and wells, though abundant, are tainted by the bustle of the city, the runoff from markets, the refuse of those who live without privilege. Drinking from them unfiltered invites illness, and so the wine flows instead, a liquid shield against the invisible threats that lurk in unclean water. You raise your glass at breakfast, at luncheon, at every table where you sit, not merely for pleasure, but out of necessity. You notice how the wine is never simple, never the humble grape pressed and fermented in the quiet countryside. No, it is always layered, aged, blended, infused with spices and herbs, to mask the imperfections that time and travel have wrought. It is poured from bottles of dark glass, sometimes sealed with wax, sometimes wrapped in cloth, always handled with reverence. The color shifts from deep ruby to pale gold, and the aroma carries the scents of distant hillsides, of sun-warmed soil and crushed berries. Yet even as the wine comforts you, dulling the edge of thirst and cleansing the palate between bites of food, you feel its weight upon your body. It warms your cheeks with a soft flush, quickens your pulse in subtle waves, and settles in your stomach like a slow-burning fire. You drink not just to satisfy, but to protect, to purify what would otherwise poison, and in doing so you invite a different kind of vulnerability. The servants attend you with practiced efficiency, refilling your glass as it empties, their eyes alert to any sign of fatigue or discomfort. You sense their quiet concern, for they understand the double-edged nature of this dependence on wine. It is both life-giver and slow poison, a balm and a burden carried in every sip. As you move through the day, the effects of the constant drinking become more apparent. Your thoughts waver slightly, a gentle haze clouding your focus. Conversations seem distant, as if spoken behind a veil. Your limbs feel heavier, your steps less certain, yet you must maintain the facade of control and grace. To falter is to risk not only embarrassment, but a loss of status and respect in a society where appearances govern reality. You notice too the subtle social dances that revolve around the consumption of wine. At gatherings, the clinking of glasses is a ritual as intricate as the lace on your sleeves. To refuse a drink is to offend. To drink too eagerly is to betray weakness. You learn to pace yourself, to sip slowly, to raise your glass just so. All gestures loaded with meaning beneath the surface of polite civility. Your skin, you realize with a fleeting touch, carries the telltale signs of this life. The delicate flush upon your cheeks is less the glow of health and more the imprint of constant intoxication. Fine lines etch themselves around your eyes and mouth, deepening with each passing season. The reflection in the mirror is familiar yet subtly altered. A woman who carries the burdens of both privilege and the slow toll of excess. The night returns as a cycle of warmth and haze. You find yourself drawn once again to the hidden alcoves and quiet chambers where the wine flows freely, and the masks of decorum can briefly slip. Here, behind closed doors, away from the prying eyes of court and kin, the true costs of this liquid dependency reveal themselves. Whispered confessions, aching heads, tremulous hands, and the fragile search for solace in a world gilded yet fragile. You recall the tales told in hushed tones by those who serve, stories of nobles undone by the very elixir meant to protect them. The artist whose hands once crafted masterpieces now tremble from years of indulgence. The statesman whose speeches falter beneath the weight of forgotten promises and forgotten sobriety. The delicate lady whose laughter once filled the halls, now softened into silence behind the closed shutters of a private chamber. Yet despite these warnings, the wine remains ever present, a constant in a world where the purity of water is a dangerous luxury few dare to taste. It is poured at every meal, from dawn to dusk, a river of amber and ruby that sustains as much as it diminishes. You drink again, feeling the warm glow spread through your veins. A bittersweet comfort against the chill of uncertainty and the sharp edges of expectation. The taste is familiar, both sweet and bitter, a reminder of the complexities woven into this life of excess and restraint. As dusk falls, you stand at a window overlooking the gardens, the soft light fading into twilight. The scent of crushed grapes lingers in your memory, mingling with the earthy aroma of the soil and the distant promise of rain. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, feeling the pull of the night and the slow, steady rhythm of the wine within you. Tomorrow, the cycle will begin anew. The glasses will be filled again. The toasts will be made. The delicate balance of pleasure and peril will continue to shape your days and nights in this gilded world. And you will drink once more to the fragile dance of survival beneath the sparkle of crystal and candlelight. Chapter 10. The Feast Never Ends. As the night deepens and the last of the flickering candles gutter softly in their crystal holders, you find yourself still seated at the grand dining table, a place that, despite hours of indulgence and restraint, has become almost like a second home. The table, a long expanse of polished mahogany gleaming beneath the soft glow of chandeliers, is now strewn with remnants of the evening's elaborate courses. Delicate crumbs of sugar-dusted pastries, half-empty glasses reflecting the muted light, and silverware arranged with a practiced precision that belies the fatigue settling into your bones. The guests around you, though fewer now, maintain the same carefully composed appearances they bore at the beginning of the evening. Their faces are powdered to a flawless sheen, their lips curved in smiles that mask weariness and perhaps a quiet resignation. You notice how even their movements have slowed, the elegant gestures once fluid and poised, now marked by the subtle tremor of exhaustion beneath the veneer of grace. You feel the weight of the evening settle into your own body, a heaviness that presses not only against your ribs, but against your very spirit. The lavish feast has been as much a test of endurance as it has been a celebration of abundance. Each course, from the first golden roasted pheasant to the final towers of spun sugar and candied fruits, was both a delight and a burden, an intoxicating mixture of pleasure and pain that you bore with practiced composure. Your mind drifts to the endless cycle that this feast represents. Not just a single evening's indulgence, but a way of life, a ritual repeated day after day, season after season. The feast is never truly over. It lives on in the memories of taste and scent, in the ache of overfullness, in the quiet moments stolen behind heavy curtains where relief is sought in secret. You think of the servants who have moved like shadows throughout the evening, their faces impassive yet marked by the toll of ceaseless labor. They are the unseen guardians of this world, tasked with maintaining the fragile balance between opulence and decay, between abundance and scarcity. Their quiet vigilance ensured that no poison slipped through, no spoiled morsel reached your lips untested. Yet even they bear the burden of this endless feast, their hands worn and their eyes heavy from the weight of responsibility. The memory of the hidden retiring chamber lingers in your mind, a secret refuge where the nobles retreat to unburden themselves, where the masks of civility can briefly slip away in the quiet embrace of solitude. It is a place of both relief and shame, a symbol of the paradox at the heart of this gilded world. You wonder how many have passed through its doors tonight, how many will return in the nights to come. Outside the dining chamber, the palace settles into a hushed stillness. The grand halls, lined with portraits of ancestors long gone, echo softly with the footsteps of late-night attendants and the distant strains of a lute played by a solitary musician. The air is cooler now, scented with the faint aroma of extinguished candles and polished wood. Yet within you, the warmth of wine and sweetness still burns softly, a lingering reminder of the night's excess. You rise from your chair slowly, your limbs heavy but your posture unwavering. The silk and velvet of your gown whisper against the floor as you move, a soft sound in the quiet chamber. You make your way toward the windows where the moon hangs low in the sky, casting a silver glow over the manicured gardens below. The world outside is peaceful, timeless, and distant, a stark contrast to the tumult of sensation and expectation that has filled your evening. You gaze out at the shadowed trees and winding paths, the gentle rustle of leaves carried on a cool breeze. For a moment, you allow yourself to imagine a different life. One where hunger is not a constant companion, where food is simple and satisfying, where the body is not a battleground of indulgence and restraint. But the thought slips away like mist at dawn, replaced by the reality of your gilded existence. As you turn back into the room, you feel the full weight of the feast settle upon you. In your aching joints, your heavy limbs, the subtle haze clouding your thoughts. Yet within this weight, there is also a strange comfort, the certainty of routine, the security of belonging to a world that, despite its contradictions, offers structure and meaning. You move toward your chambers, the corridors quiet save for the soft echo of your footsteps. The servants who cross your path bow with practiced respect, their faces unreadable, but their eyes reflecting a shared understanding of the burdens borne by all who live beneath the palace's gilded roof. Inside your room, you slip from your gown and settle into the soft embrace of your bed, the sheets cool against your skin. You close your eyes and breathe deeply, feeling the slow release of tension as the night wraps around you like a velvet cloak. The feast may never truly end, but for now there is rest. And in that rest, a fragile hope that tomorrow you may face the endless cycle once more, with grace, with endurance, and with the quiet strength that lies beneath the powder and silk.